So if it cut out when I was saying about the penthouse being repurposed space because they took the part of the building that isn't used for anything other than storage and then turned it into what becomes, at this point, well, it's still luxury in many ways. There are some buildings in New York that are all penthouses. But the lighthouse being endangered and extinct, basically, right? That if it doesn't get done, it's not going to happen. You know, like you live this life the one time, yes? Even if you reincarnate, but this life was this life. And so you do with it what you can. And there are entities, there's a devil who wants you to fail and will work against you, absolutely. So failure is a possibility. Children are trafficked and trafficked and trafficked. Like shit is just rampant, right? So not everybody, and you know, it's because it's overwhelming. The evil is overwhelming. It's just how we end up getting rescued. I'm not. It's obviously a very complex thing, or it would have happened like before anything got started. So the idea of the different kinds of space that I need came through while I was studying this. Detection, how to be detectable but harder than usual to detect, is a theme that I found in modifying the round tent. Because what's the point of a space pod? It's going to use minimal resources to get something done with the fewest necessary people. It's harder to detect, right? The outpost is harder to get to. It's harder to create. Adapted to what's available for resources. You can bring stuff in, but at what expense, right? So basically you don't want to have too much of a high risk supply process because that leaves you completely vulnerable. The travel hostel, inter and independence, interdependence and independence, right? And then I figured I'd need an inner core surrounded by an outer core because you could have some to a lot of people, right? And therefore circulating and not circulating. All or nothing of the cruise ship, yes? And yeah, everything has to be, you know, if it goes wrong, chances are it's going to go really wrong. And ballast and organization being key. Like Pisces needs absolute organization pretty much 24/7. Or it's like trouble. Because there's just way too much to keep track of in Pisces. There's every house, there's every kind of thinking, there's every personality, there are tons of people. So you pull all that into the round tent, and that's a lot for a round tent. Same with the hostel. So there are a lot of people in my round tent. And at the same time, so how do I go undetected? You know, like, how do you build for that? And then, yeah, like to be mobile. When the communities that use round tents, then if they travel together, right, then they're more detectable because there's a group of them, right? How do you balance that against the singular or the few trying to be undetectable when you are working with who you are to be able to manifest to get the project done, what your projects are. So then you need your strategy. You need your strategy of, I've got the spaceship overlapping with my exotic outpost. That's some to a lot of people, right? I do have the lighthouse here. It's time sensitive, space time sensitive, place and time sensitive. Embassy compound I have here. So things need to be guarded and protected, but there's a diplomacy to it. There's an ambassadorship to it. So that's going to tie me into my Irish roots, that I know that I've got evidence that I'm specifically connected to. Well, actually, I just heard from Scotland. But we know that basically my cards that I get tie me into Aboriginal ancestors because I feel completely driven to answer to them because of where I live. Everybody matters. All ancestors matter. Africa, Nigeria, Yoruba. Yoruba isn't even the right word, okay? That's another blanket term. But I answer to them as well. So the Orisha, I answer to the Orisha. Who else? Then I have the submarine with my exotic outpost. So there's the slow moving, the necessary slow movement of like being careful because it's life or death to move too fast up and down. And there's a lot of people in the embassy compound, but there otherwise aren't too many people here in my outpost. So what does that mean? You know, gives me space to get stuff done. It means I get to enjoy the exotic with just a few people. Sometimes a lot of people. But that story and that strategy. So that's where that gets us in terms of your Earth story. If we go back to perseverance, conviction, and hard work, exhaustion. Yes, I should say with probable heavy sickness. That's... oh, God. That's going to be the truth of this. But it's right there. It's right there. It's been 3 months, 3.5 months. And I thought we were going already exhausted with the information coming through in the air. But now this book needs to be, edited and revised and get set to relaunch it for April, same time as I'm doing Beginning of Drawing. But the thing is, what they do have me finishing up, and I wasn't expecting to do this until just a couple of days ago. I was like, what they did an ace move with me. Because, of course, with Virgo, we have 6 gifts. Yes, I did get the gift of there was a period of time in there, 3 weeks, where my son went on vacation to visit his dad. And I had time to get a sense of myself. Get a, 22 years later, who am I on my own, right? And what's it going to be like? So that absolutely happened for me. That's a gift that came through, and it was a very rough gift. It came because he came back, and then there was a question of whether he's going to move out there or not, and there's still that question. So there's the that whole transformation is in process. Yes. But then the planning in Taurus. The root work, I did, let's see, what came through in that. That was a lot of going back in the past and making decisions about things, healing about things. And during that time, what are we going through? I did review it all. The planning does catch me up. Because there was a partnering up, but it was actually in December, wasn't it? Or was it the mid... What did I say? When we're in the 9th house. Starting collaborations. Yeah. And that's when the whole High Court appeal came back and me and Tracy were back together full force. There's me and Kali. Me and Kali are definitely coming together stronger and stronger and stronger. And then working on the ad campaigns with my partner Bobby. He came on board and he was gung-ho, and that was an opportunity I'd been looking for, not for the ad campaigns, but for working with him for like 2.5 years now. We started by working together. Lazy ass that he is. But he's got, if you could look up Book Punk, yeah, he runs the Book Punk. It's his baby book club on Facebook. He's in Ireland. He's a sports broadcaster, radio broadcaster. So that's a struggle in itself as well. But then we end up with this wish fulfillment. There's 9, and we've got the completion of a project, right? Absolutely, with beginning of drawing. But this wish fulfillment needed to be answered. So the question is, is everybody getting wish fulfillment through this Earth story? And I found out a couple of days ago, because of the complication with Facebook ads, and they want me to collect emails through them. I'm like, I don't even want to collect emails. I like direct, immediate contact. Meaningful, like through direct messages or phone calls, or email can be one of them for sure, but not email lists and not auto response systems and all that crap. That really, I know that there are still effective businesses that use them, that are primarily sales, like specials, connected to specials and deals and stuff. There can be some meaningful emails that carry information, but by and large, I think we've so exhausted every option at this point that it's really about entertainment and being meaningful. And so I think the best model is absolutely looking at YouTube readers, tarot readers that people show up for almost as on a daily basis. And there's a meaningful communication there, and then what you want, you contact them for, basically. So I did not want to collect emails through my Facebook ads, and I realized that my website that's been sitting waiting for me to finish it, that I keep paying into, with Squarespace. It was time just to finish that up, and so that is a huge wish fulfillment, and that's what I'm knocking myself out. I know I need to put the same level of work into that as I put into the High Court appeal. I need to show up for myself as much as I showed up for Tracy. And that's why they pair those things together. They also used my sick time, though. They pushed me to the point of illness so that I would have the time off for me and for my wish fulfillment. Because I was still able to function enough. Even though I was like on death's door, I was still able to recognize and function enough to carefully, right, get better, and at the same time apply myself. So yes, it cost money. It cost several days' work. That just, you don't get paid for, because that's how self-employment works. But paying it forward, absolutely. So, like, they whispered it in my head the day before. They're like, no, you're going to cancel tomorrow's client, and you're going to probably going to cancel the client after that. They already knew. They already had it all set up. Huge snowstorms, and another client the whole family had COVID, so they need to be on lockdown for however long. Chances are they gave it to me, but too late now because they didn't tell me in time. But I know I'm sick for my own reasons. My guides coordinated everything so that there was nothing to do but be home and work on this. And get caught up on this. Woo! Hello. Smoking candle over here. Just spoke up. Okay, thank you. So, yeah, absolutely wish fulfillment, which I wasn't necessarily, if those things hadn't happened at the last minute in this house, I wouldn't necessarily, I'd be stretching to say what exactly the wish fulfillment was, but now it's extremely clear. And it takes us back to the gifts and the collaborations of the air, all the guides, I believe. So now we head into this fifth house, which is taking us, you would think that the fire energy would like burn us right out of all this heavy earth energy, but what we're heading straight into is that mega nakshatra, the heaviness of the ancestral ties that bind, and the money oppression is what we're getting into right away in that Leo house. So hopefully that brings extreme happiness with it for if we want this series to succeed at all. But that is, I think, a very thorough experience of earth energy. And what I was hoping was that by the 10th month, the mid 5 to 6 days of January, which are right ahead of us, they're good for, I have it that they're good for finishing projects because it's the 10th month of the book. I know that Eat, Read, Love, he was saying it's a good day to, the 14th and 15th, 16th of January are going to be good for getting new clients. But I'm willing to bet that that's going to be postponed for me. I'm going to be launching the ads, yes. You can't expect an ad to do well in its first couple of days necessarily. I've done well. I've made like $70,000 off of $300 spent on ads. But actually more than 70,000. Let's say all said and done about 100,000. With a lot of work, but not much overhead. So finishing and launching, yes. And that can include starting the process. Maybe somebody will be interested by then. It's when you want to get ads good, but you do need to allow for them to take their own time. So then that's what we're heading into next, though, is finishing up and releasing and starting. But very much tied to, so not only 8th house for money, but then your 5th house because of your ancestral ties, your oppressions, or your help. It's not what we thought, though. Yeah. Okay. But that is, I think, what I have to say. Yeah. That's what I have to say about the earth houses. And next, I'll be right back, I think, hopefully later today. I'm recording the beginning of, you can see right there. There you go. And what I did was I went back in, and I've got to put the notes in, but I went, see, this is my 8th. I have a huge 8th house, okay? In 2nd. In 8th, in the whole house, it's in Gemini, right? So then I look up. I already know Mrigashira, the female snake, but I look that up again. Then I look up Ardra, and then I look up Punarvasu, okay? It overlaps with my 8th house. Here we have that overlap, that gap, right? The same gap that needs to succeed as up in Capricorn with 2nd house. Between my 2 2nd houses that I found, right? So there's a gap between my 2 8th houses. So Punarvasu, Pushya, Ashlesha, and Maga. With a bit of, more than enough, Purva Falguni, okay? And I'm going to progress. Yeah, so, yeah, I'm going to go do this and then I'll be back. One thing I want to mention is that Oya brought storm warnings very clearly to me through some messages. And the storm is still raging. And she's matching up the weather with my sickness, with the progress, with the completion, right? So I need to thank Oya in particular, the Orisha. Kali, as always. And everybody I thanked last time. But Oya in particular brought huge storm conditions in every possible way. And emotionally, through relationships, all of it. She brought it. And she warned me. And she's like, you're going to be triggered. And it's going to hurt. But we're going to get this done. Oshun is the Orisha of the hustle. And no doubt she's coming up fast. But she's been with me all along anyway. But Oya brings... I wouldn't say... They say that she brings the storms. That she's the Orisha of storms. And I would say she's the Orisha of storm warnings. And how to help you survive a storm. I don't want to blame her for tornadoes. I really don't. Devil can take all the credit for that. Which Remo? Oh God. Just when I thought, no, there were some more cards I wanted to, right? Okay, so the shape of the universe, right? The infinity symbol of this twisted Taurus donut that is the Mobius strip. We are traveling on the inside of this. Chances are excellent, according to Anton Petrov on YouTube. Okay. I've got it all in one of my, when we go back to my Taurus house videos, okay? It's all documented in there. Strength card, again, repeating the shape of the universe. Very highlighted in the strength card in the crystal deck, crystal tarot, where there are actually two worlds. But this deck, crystal deck, because of the chessboard motif, okay? The Masonic Great White Brotherhood. It's not just Masonic, it's the whole Great White Brotherhood. Rosicrucians, Oddfellows. There are so many names, there are so many organizations, and they all belong to, okay? But this chessboard motif, when you see that, the game that's being played, yes? This reminds me of David anyway, but the world, the pentacle, the world. This has 12 points on it. But the world that he divides things in. Here we have clarification again with 7 stars and the 8 star, right? The all-seeing eye. This is what the decks can remind you of. Yes, the all-seeing eye, that for me is, you know, obviously the great architect, the asshole that put us here. Again, in this magician card. But this reminds me of Doug Masico, Doug Mesner, Lucian Greaves, okay? Bad-mouthing the snake. The truth about the snake and the African prophetesses. The truth about Adam and Eve. The Bible came from Arabia. Kamal Salibi. It's tribal. It's tribal. It's tribal. But it's also the smear campaign against the African prophetesses, because the books of prophets in the Bible are taken from the African prophecies that are meant for a whole other people. Egypt is mistranslated because it's not actually Egypt. In the Old Testament books, the first 7 books, it's actually another part of the Assyria region. The name places all, when correctly translated, because biblical Hebrew was not a spoken language, so it needed to have some extra care put into how it's translated into verbal, and it matches, when it's done correctly by Kamal Salibi, 1985, Bible came from Arabia, it matches the place names in the Assyria region of Arabia. Eden is still there. It's a little wadi in the desert in Arabia, okay? This Lilith isn't even the right name for the any of the African prophetesses, as far as I have found. So the name itself is already unfair, but the snake is sacred. Then we get into the rod of Asclepius and the caduceus. This is not the rod of Asclepius. The rod of Asclepius has 1 snake, but Asclepius got his powers from Medusa. The head of Medusa, here we go again. So Medusa is a personification and a smear campaign of the African prophetesses. Medusa is cursed by Nike, Athena, because Poseidon rapes her in Athena's temple and pisses off Athena. So Athena does what any psycho would do and blames the victim and curses her beauty with ugliness and takes her powers, of course, because then she is killed. Medusa's killed because it becomes a heroic thing to kill her. What are we doing? We're killing the truth. We're killing the truth about how we got our knowledge from African prophetesses and prophets, okay? And then she gives part of Medusa's power, because there's still power. There's still power in the head of Medusa. And she gives some of that power to Asclepius, the healer. The healer who takes over the credit for what the prophetesses were doing. They were healing. They were, they were bringing people back to life. They were doing everything. They knew the medicines. But it all gets handed over to Asclepius. Same as the prophecies get handed over to the names of the prophets in the Bible.